Okay, my YouTube people, this is a video on how to decipher the date codes and numbers that are on your Knucklehead and Panhead transmissions. For the date codes, all the numbers seem to be cast in, even though they look like they could be stamped in. For the model numbers, they cast them in, and mostly all of the Knuckle and most of the Panheads had this number here. It's the 121-35. The first ones were built in 1935, and I'm sure, as you know, all Harley numbers generally add in the date that they started building them. At least 4 of these were built as prototypes for the 1936 model in 1935. The same casting number, this 21-35 or 2135, appeared for the 36 through 47 Knuckles, the 37 through 48 big twin flatheads, and 1948 through 1963 for the Panheads. In 1964, some of them had this number, while others had a casting number of 3470364. Then again, in 1965, they had the same part number, the 34703, but then it was a 65 part number. You can see it right here on this case. This has 121 with no dash and 35. This one has 121 with a dash and 35 right there. Then this is the year that it was made. So the way they did this is, the first was the letter, and the letter designates the month. Now in 48 and very early in 49, they did not use I. So M wound up being December. A would be January. Of course, B would be February, and so on. But when you got the I, sometimes I was September, then J would be October, K November, L December, and then other times they skipped I, so J would be September, K would be October, L would be November, and M would be December. And then the last letter of this is the year that this was made. This one was made December of 1948. So this is a 1949 transmission. Most of the date codes had a space in between them, but from August of 48 to March of 1949, there was no space. That's kind of how you could tell that this is December of 1948 and not December of 1938. Plus, there's some other indicators that we'll go over. Starting in 1950, they went to 2 numbers, a 1 or a 2. In this case, a 2 would be February, and a 3 is 53. So this case was February of 1953. They have different numbers. This one happens to be 1A here. This one here is just a 2. I couldn't find any paperwork that indicated what they were really about. The next thing to help identify your transmission is the vent. In this one, you have a boss raised up and the vent's right here. They started putting this boss in for the vent in 1939. The same thing here. You have a boss raised up and the vent's here. In the early transmissions, they did not have this boss that stuck up. They had the vent here, but this was not a cast-in piece. It was more flat across here. Here's a picture of what that looks like. Here's another picture of what that looks like where it didn't have the boss. The vent boss remained in the case until 1955. In 1956, you can see in this green arrow, they put the vent in the transmission lid at that point, and although the boss is still on the transmission, you can see it's not drilled. Also, in the very early transmissions, the 5th bolt mount, which is right over here, was brass. You can see this one's had some kind of repair done to it. Another thing to help identify the transmission. Right here on this case, these are flat. On earlier transmissions, 1946 and earlier, they were round. You can see in this picture where the blue arrows are that they're rounded. Some of the transmissions were machined for reverse gear, and reverse went where you see this plug. If it had a reverse, because there was a shaft that went through there, and you could see inside, the shaft would also go through that inner boss, then this plug would be left out. The earlier ones that didn't have any reverse weren't even machined. You can see that in this picture, that it hasn't been machined. There is a few other indicators, but these are the major ones. I hope this helps. There is a few other slight differences in the transmission case, but these are the major ones. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments or just leave a comment. I really appreciate it. Don't forget to hit the like button. It doesn't cost you a thing and it helps me out. And don't forget to subscribe if you're not subscribed. Anyway, have a great day and thank you.